Hello everyone, I am Tacet, and today I'm going to be going over the Gems of War Tex-Mex event in which the Rover 300 is added to the game. So let's get into that. As far as his trait stone, he ends up dropping a red-blue. Early on in the game, you'd want to use this on Merline or Vanguard. And later on in the game, you would definitely want to put it on the recently added Mirage Queen that just ended up coming in just the other week. This has been the first time you've been able to get red, blues, and mass since then. So if you haven't currently gotten the new legend from the most recent faction completely maxed out, I would highly advise doing so, as it is a great utility to have. We just covered a video on it recently as well. Other than that, you'd probably want to put it into something like Tesla or Crimson Bat. Tesla also being in the event key drop table this week as a pretty good true damage troop. And speaking about pretty good, Rover 300 is actually not that bad. It explodes a gem and then creates 4 yellow gems, which isn't much, but it does a additional 3 yellows per skull that are on the board. So this is particularly good with something like Humility, since you can simply just go give Humility, you can have it target on Doom Skulls while also simultaneously doing yellow, or have it target on Skulls while simultaneously doing yellow, both of which he needs on the board. The yellows in order to have a higher chance of gaining an extra turn, and the Skulls so he can actually get boost ratio to create more yellows onto the board. So it ends up having pretty good synergy with any kind of Humility related team, which is probably the biggest thing you'd probably use Rover 300 for. Other than that, you'd probably just use it in the context of a pure Adana or a pure Mech team. I don't think you'd really use it much in Beasts, as it's not really going to come into play for too many. There are quite a few yellow Beasts, but I don't think it would work decently enough with anything. It is more for shot possibly with Forest Guardian, since it could feed yellow into it if you wanted to go down that route. As far as our event objectives this week, we have 10% to all Adana, as well as 10% to all mechs, which is nearly the entire kingdom. The only ones that really aren't is that one dwarf and all the humans, which kind of divides the kingdom. It's a little bit of a weird kingdom because, yeah, only a little bit of about half, a little bit more than half, is actually mech, because it has like a weird mix of humans that make the kingdom actually overall weaker. We still lack a lot of good mechs, other than like Tina 9000 and Bombot and like a very few others. There's almost no particularly good mechs at the moment, unfortunately, and of course the Mechanist hero class itself. But we do gain 5 extra glory for every single time we end up using Rover 300 in PvP this week. Again, if you want to use something like Humility with Rover 300, something everyone has access to. If you don't currently have a Humility, you can easily get it off of just guild chests. Simply being in a guild, going and claiming some seals, and just opening a few chests. Even just within 10 would likely give you a Humility if you don't already have it, and it would be perfect synergy with that troop. And other than that, if we just go do a bunch of Explore in any kingdom that has a lot of green, like Forest of Thorns or any other one that you might want to do for the trait stone, you'll be able to get all the objectives done this week, which mainly gives a bunch of event keys. And speaking of event keys are decent to open this week. It is mainly mech-related drops, so if we go over, or because of Adana, so it'll drop anything that is currently within Adana except for the Carlson, which is from the raid event this week. But there are some pretty decent drops that you can end up getting. The most 2 noteworthy ones being all the way at the bottom here, and also pretty much the rarest, is Tesla and Tina 9000. Tesla is one of the better true damage options within the game, particularly from an early game perspective, because it's really good against things that are stronger than you, and at a lower to mid-range level, pretty much everything is stronger than you throughout the entire game. So having something like a Tesla is a pretty good utility troop to have. Its base damage is ridiculously low, only doing 8 true damage split to all enemies. However, it's a boost ratio based on all armor within the game, including all of your ally armor and all of the enemy armor. So the higher your enemy armor, the more overall damage you have, and if you had something to buff your own team's armor, or if the enemy had something that buffed their team's armor, it would also be pretty good against that. So basically any team that runs high armor, either on your own team or the enemy's team, or both simultaneously, Tesla will be pretty good against. And of course, as troops' armor gets higher, likely their HP and stuff will also be getting higher. Or, you know, anything that has higher stats will overall naturally have higher armor, which will give her capability of scaling up to pretty much anything with the entire game. If you currently struggle with things like pet battles or even challenges, or not challenges, but dungeons still, Tesla's a good pickup to make sure you can pretty much consistently take them out every single time if you don't currently really have too many other options. And other than that, Tina 9000, you've probably been seeing me use it a lot lately. It did get buffed like, what, 2 months ago or so? It got an invisible buff. They never really posted it anywhere, I don't believe, but they made it so its ability doesn't glitch out anymore. It now will always do all 3 of its shots, and ever since they fixed that, it is a pretty solid true damage troop. It almost guarantee gets a kill because of how much concentration of damage it has. It's really good when you're doing battles that are similar in stats, so like low level delves, as well as just PvP in general, or even Guild Wars, because the 50% spell reduction actually makes it pretty good at surviving on, like, let's say something like Red Guild War Day, which has a lot of spell-related damage because of Yagwe and Queen Titania. This thing can outlive them and ideally kill them out before they can kill you because of how much magic-related damage they do. So it's really good at countering stuff like that. So highly, highly advised to get this. I would almost consider it top 5? I'm not even sure these days. Definitely top 10, I would say, Tina 9000. And she is in the event key drop table, of course, pretty rare. It could take hundreds upon hundreds of keys, but do keep in mind she is around this week if you do want to try attempting for that troop. Other than that, we have, of course, raids this week, and it brings in a pretty good weapon, which I'll be going over in a moment. I might even cover it in its own whole video, but we'll be showing one team for it now. Normally, I don't really make much mention of the weapon, but this one is particularly noteworthy. Let me actually go over to the troop menu because I can show it off a little bit better, because the most noteworthy part of it's actually underneath the weapon. So if we just type in Adana. So this weapon boosts all based on Adana. This is kind of underwhelming currently just because Adana does not have the best of synergy because it's a weird, like I mentioned, a weird mix of mechs and humans. But it does boost on Adana instead of just mech, so that's a little bit better at least once they finally add a bit more Adana troops. You definitely want to get this weapon. It creates a mix of red and yellow, which are good colors for the kingdom. A lot of stuff in this kingdom use red and yellow, almost every single one of them. But probably one of the more noteworthy things, or the literal most noteworthy thing, is this very final perk right here. 20% chance to instantly kill the first enemy. That is ridiculously strong. There's one other weapon that currently has this. I believe it's some random brown epic weapon that's basically useless because you would never bother using it. But this is the first weapon that has Vorpal, this 20% instant kill, that is actually viable. And it's even a looping weapon too, so you can keep looping this weapon, gaining mana. It doesn't feed into itself, unfortunately. It's not that strong. But you can feed into another troop, like let's say, well, any mana generating troop that is red or yellow. And then that other troop can feed you mana back into your weapon. And yeah, you can just keep trying for 20% instant kill. You're likely going to want to have at least 2 or 3 Adana troops on your team, if not 4. I don't think you can currently get a good 4, but yeah, you want to have as many Adanas on your team so you get more gem spawn as well as slightly more damage, but mainly for the gem spawn so you don't lose your turn. And then you just keep trying to spam for 20% instant kill. Every time you cast this is a 20% chance that you can get that kill. And even if it's not getting kills, it's still doing around 50 or so damage per cast or so. And you do get to keep stacking bleed. It keeps bleeding the first enemy, so even if they're not dying to lethal, at least they're getting a gigantic bleed stack that will start damaging them over time. So yeah, overall, it has a lot of potential. One other thing to really note about this weapon is, since it is one of the better instant kill options in the game right now, actually, you might want to consider it even for things like delves. Delves currently have 0 immune to instant kill, as well as PvP for the most part, other than Dooms, but you can't really count Dooms because no one's really running Dooms on their defend team for the most part. But yeah, basically PvP and definitely delves. There's literally nothing within the entirety of delves that has immune to instant kill. So using that 20% spam could potentially end up working out if you don't currently have too many other options, or if you just want to try it at a high level. And keep in mind, you can use this in literally any delve. It is a weapon like that. You could even use them in Tower of Doom, though of course you can't use them on the Doom itself, but for the floors prior to that, of course you can if you want to switch to that weapon. So it could have some potential. Overall, I feel like it's going to be too slow of a win in most situations to really be viable compared to other current options. But at least it's another option, so I highly advise getting it, as it might be currently better than whatever options you are using now. And even without any Adana troops on your team, it's still getting that 20% instant kill. It might not loop as well, but it still has that 20%. Anyways, as far as the event stuff that we have this week, the Tuesday event, we're going to be having Sunken Fleet, which I believe is the first time since it has come out, if I'm not mistaken. So this could be nice. We have the pet rescue just for the yellow Guild War pet. For Thursday, we'll have the Mechanist hero class, which is highly advised to get a little bit higher as they keep adding good mechs even this week. So you might want to get that maxed. It does give a little bit of a boost to all mechs when you do have it maxed. Not necessarily a necessity. It's not one of the greatest hero classes. It's definitely above average, but very, very so slightly above average. But of course, as more mechs come to the game, and with that weapon and other stuff, using this class does count as an Adana troop if you are using that weapon. So do keep that in mind if you're going to be synergizing it with the weapon, as that class will be able to assist on that team for the extra gem spawn and the extra damage. And as far as this Friday, we're going to be having a vault event. So if you want to go farm up vault keys to try to get a Cetric if you haven't already, or just farm it for general resources, that is this weekend and is highly advised to do so due to the sheer amount of resources you can get. Next up, we have Soulforge. As far as troops, there are three things that are kind of worth crafting. The main two are Wordbreaker and Possessed King. Of the two, that kind of depends. If you don't currently have too many good mythics yet, you'd probably want to opt more so for Wardbreaker. He's not really needed for kingdom upgrades at the moment. However, he does have a gigantic explosion into a pretty decent hitting all enemies. I would still advise something like an Infernus as a better option, but if you had like the diamonds now rather than waiting for Infernus, you might just want to go for Wardbreaker for now. It's not a horrible troop. You can feed it with a lot of yellow, gets a lot of damage, has a lot of mana generation. Biggest problem he has is he's the second highest mana cost in the game, but once he gets rolling, you barely even notice that. And as long as you're not up against mana drain, that's the only thing that really hard counters him. That and submerge. Other than those two mechanics, he is pretty good against most things. Just due to the sheer amount of mana while simultaneously doing damage. And he does get a little bit more stats over time, and that can stack onto magic to give him even more damage off of himself. Other than that, Possessed King is probably the more noteworthy summon, since there's a lot of things that this is required for at the moment as far as the sheer amount of things that it is useful for. For one, it is required for +1 magic off a Darkstone, so if you want to get that to 10+ stars, it is currently the only Magic Kingdom that can reach 10+ stars, so obviously +1 magic permanently for every single game mode except Arena is ridiculously strong, so that is highly advised if you haven't already done it. If you're close, if you're currently at like 8-star Darkstone or 9-star Darkstone, highly advised to go get him. Or if you're planning on getting it soon. Other than that, he has a really good mana generating option, one of the better traits for that in the entire game, as well as particularly with Skull Spam, since things like Queen Aurora obviously you wouldn't really use with Skull Spam, whereas this you can. And other than that, it has the best troop-related transform. Of course, things like Dragon's Eye are still a little bit more consistent, but as far as any troop, it has 3 separate instances of 20%, giving it potentially a 3 transform possibility. You could transform 3 enemy troops, and it does stack onto the same one. So if there are just 1 enemy troop on the enemy team, you could transform it 3 times. And this is relevant because this halves the level every single time. So let's say you're in Delves and you're up against a level 400 troop. If you end up transforming it 3 times, the first one would knock it down to 200, and to 100, and to 50. So you just knocked a level 400 troop all the way down to 50 if you were to hit the 3 transform. Of course, it normally doesn't do that. You're normally more so just doing this for the single transform, just to get rid of all of its traits, like Immune to Devour and stuff, most noteworthy with something like Iron Guts. But yeah, definitely a pretty high priority craft, especially if you're planning on getting that kingdom to 10+ stars. Other than that, he's not really used for that damage, but mainly just to transform and mana generation, and the kingdom upgrade are the most worthy aspects of that. And other than that, while not the most noteworthy of thing, Guard's Avatar as a troop isn't the greatest. However, he's required for White Helm 10-star plus, and White Helm to this day still has the best tribute in the entire game because it's pure glory. I wouldn't really get him just for the sake of doing that, but if you already have like more than half the mythics in the game, he might be worth considering getting, just because White Helm is such a good kingdom for tribute. But it's really pretty much irrelevant compared to the other two. As far as actually using it, you would almost never use the troop, so mainly Wordbreaker and Possessed King. Long story short. Anyways, let's get into a few teams real quick. Not too much I want to show. Oh no. Meta, why must you be a thing? I don't know. Can we take it out with this? Not sure we can. Oh, let's find out. Can it take out the meta? So right here, I have a version of Drill Shooter. I'll probably be covering a separate video on this later this week, hopefully. It seems like it has a lot of potential. I haven't had a large amount of time to test with it, but I definitely will be very, very soon. See what kind of things we can actually get rolling with this. But hopefully we don't lose. One of them got replaced, so we don't have to deal with Yagway, though what's going to be annoying here is we're probably going to win this battle, but he's going to escape with the bag, isn't he? Let's see. We could try double tapping him, I guess. So we'll hope for an extra turn here. That will be enough if we can get another hit on him. Problem, though, how on earth are we going to get another hit? So we'll go cleanse there. Get all that off. Don't you dare escape. No. No! My Volkey! Well, at least we won the battle, but still, that's not fair. Come back with my Volkey. Oh, well, we'll be able to get plenty more this weekend. Anyways, let's go get the last little bit of mana we need off of that. This does have a lot of HP and armor gain. This probably needs a little bit more damage overall, I'd probably say. But basic thing that we're trying for here is, of course, the 20% instant kills, and you can just kill out the first troop with your damage and then let the instant kill hit onto the next. It is spaced enough that that will allow you to do it, and the main reason for that is you can't really do that with some troops that do have instant kill, but with this you can because it's on the perks. It's one of the few times when having them separated like that is actually beneficial. Like whenever it does stuff to the board, it's normally counterproductive, but in this particular instance with this 20% instant kill, having a delay, it's actually useful because you can use this damage to kill out the first troop that's within low kill range, and then you can let the instant kill the bigger troop that hasn't been touched yet and just kill it out like that. But yeah, this weapon, pretty nice, has a lot of potential. One of the better instant kills pretty much in the game now, which seems really odd, just off of like a random weapon that they added. But yeah, definitely highly advise getting it by the end of this week. I don't think it's going to really become meta, but if you want a fun instant kill option, it is definitely one to consider. Okay, there's a real team. So for this next one, I just wanted to show a yellow farming team, though this one you'd probably use at lower battles. Like if you were going to try to go and use like rushing, try to just farm up some glory. I guess we'll just take this one now, slow enough. But I'm using this with Ariali, though. Do keep in mind you can use any yellow troop that hits all enemies. I just feel like it works best with Ariali, so if you have it, I guess you could use it that way. This is personally what I would do if I was going to go farm glory this week off of the +5 glory. As I mentioned at the beginning of this video, you do get +5 glory if you end up using the Rover 300 in this week's event. So highly advise doing that if you are looking to get glory. Though, of course, if you also want glory, you'd easily be able to get it this weekend off of the Gnome event, which you can get a couple thousand per hour just off of that. So you have two different ways to simultaneously gain a lot of glory, because those are basically the two highest rates you can ever get for glory. Just general whenever there is a Gnome event, as well as whenever there is a +5 glory troop. Those are always the two biggest times when you can get glory, and they're happening simultaneously, so you can end up getting a lot of glory this week, is the bottom line there. So we'll do that, get our last little hit there with our Ariali. Ideally, we'd get a magic buff there. We can take this out on real teams if we truly had to, too. It does keep summoning a brown-purple, which would allow us to cover every color, and we could just keep using it as a meat shield. And I guess we'll just go do that once. Actually, let's go against a real team real quick. But, yeah, Rover 300. Decent. It's basically, as I mentioned, almost every team I feel like that's going to be using it will be using Humility. It's because there's not really any other option that does yellow skulls for the most part. I guess Divine Ishbala, but I don't know, wouldn't that deny his red? Yeah, so you wouldn't really use it much with Divine Ishbala, but I guess you technically could. Would be a little bit weird using a non-divine and like that kind of premise, but I guess it would kind of fit in some context. But there isn't really much else other than Humility, basically, that would end up synergizing with it, because you would need both yellow and skulls onto the board. Pretty important aspect for him, because if he has one without the other, he can't really do as much. And we can hit this on Doom Skulls, and he does boost ratio off of Doom Skulls, so do keep that in mind. They do work exactly the same, even though it specifies skulls, but of course any skull counts as skull, even the Doom ones. We'll go for that. Oh, I might have just given the win there. Okay, good. He didn't go for it. Yeah, he's probably going to get the kill on first shot. What are you doing? Don't do it to us. Well, we'll take a brown for now. Oh, yeah, I'm currently using Mech. Oh, no. It's one of the only problems with starting him with slightly more mana, isn't it? Yeah. He gets to not have bury every brown. Not as good. Well, we'll let him do his thing. Is he just going to kill us out at the end? It looks like he is. Humility, giving us that extra magic. It looks like we're still going to need a double cast, though. So it looks like it didn't quite work out this time around. But, oh, well, get our poke there. He can get a really solid cast out of that. I kind of just want to cast this. We're not currently frozen on yellow, so why don't we just do it there? There should be an extra turn. I don't see why it wouldn't be. And then we just Ariali to Ariali. And he's just going to kill himself off a 25% reflect. We do keep getting meat shields, and those can just keep tanking for us. And it does allow us to cover every color then as well. Let's see. Do we just take the skull there? I guess so. No, I think we just let him tap us, actually. Because we want to go take our mana to full onto this troop, so we can start getting the mana right back down. And that kind of worked. We'll just take that for a free turn, get Ariali all the way to full. Why didn't you surge? And we'll just grab that. Even if he takes a kill there, he'll just kill himself out, so it's not that big a deal. He doesn't even get it. And it was kill it with double cast true damage, which is normally how it would go down. A little bit of a shaky battle, but same general premise. You cast Ariali twice, kill out the entire team, and repeat for a bunch of glory. Of course, doing it during a Gnome event would be a little bit better, but you could just do this for now, and then when the Gnome event comes around, you can go and do all of your Explore then. That's basically what I'm intending to do, just doing all this once the event actually comes around. Bam, Explore. And prior to that, would probably just use the other guy for +5 glory, or even just not really use them at all. It is nice to get that +5 glory, though it's, of course, not necessarily a necessity. If you already have over 500,000, you pretty much have enough for forever, unless you just want to use it for glory keys, of course, to try to get other various troops. But anyways, guys, that will wrap it up for now. If you still have any other questions about this event or anything else related to Gems of War, feel free to leave it in the comment section below. Thank you all so much for watching, and have a wonderful week. Goodbye, everyone.